Welcome to the Learning Unit Scenario Creation Process. An OLA educational scenario is a structured plan which describes the educational process of a course and aims to guide teachers during this process. It includes the description of the sequence of learning activities and an outline of the teaching techniques to be adopted, the expected learning outcomes and competencies to be acquired by the students, the tasks and roles that teachers and students undertake, as well as the interactions between them. The scenario creation process consists of 4 phases. In the knowing phase, the teacher collects information on the topic he or she would like to focus the scenario, as well as on already existing educational resources concerning similar topics. In the designing phase, the teacher starts designing the scenario, taking into account the competencies and learning outcomes that he or she wants the students to acquire. In the implementing phase, the teacher implements the scenario in his or her class. Finally, in the evaluating phase, the student learning is evaluated. Moreover, the teacher evaluates the effectiveness of the scenario by measuring the competencies acquired by the students or by applying to the scenario itself proper evaluation tools. This phase allows the teacher to collect inputs to improve the scenario that can be used to activate a new knowing and designing phase. In the European countries, the educational frameworks usually adopt one of the 2 following approaches: design by learning outcomes or design by competencies. In order to make scenarios adapt to every context in Europe, OLA approach requires that teachers identify both competencies and learning outcomes in their scenarios. What do we mean by competence? OLA projects adopts the perspective promoted by the European Council recommendation on key competencies for lifelong learning. In this framework, a competence is a combination of knowledge, skills and attitudes, where knowledge is composed of the facts and figures, concepts, ideas and theories which are already established and support the understanding of a certain area or subject. Skills are defined as the ability and capacity to carry out processes and use the existing knowledge to achieve results. Attitudes describe the disposition and mindsets to act or react to ideas, persons or situations. OLA approach promotes some specific target competencies. Referring to the European Council recommendation, they are the citizenship competence, the digital competence, namely a critical and responsible use of digital contents, personal, social and learning to learn competence, with a specific focus on the capability to detect prejudices and stereotypes, filter and assess information, autonomous and cooperative learning. Moreover, OLA promotes the visual literacy competence, as defined by the framework of the European Network for Visual Literacy, namely a set of abilities that enable an individual to effectively find, interpret, evaluate, use, and create images and visual media. OLA aims to promote a wider concept of digital competencies, including not only strictly technological competencies, but also the capability of using online platforms and information sources critically and responsibly, as a premise for exercising a conscious and informed citizenship. Indeed, OLA invites to pay attention to recognizing stereotypes, starting from, but not limited to, gender and values implicitly conveyed by school textbooks and multimedia online resources. Let's make an example about what EU Council means by competence. For example, the literacy competence is the ability to identify, understand, express, create, and interpret concepts, feelings, facts and opinions in both oral and written forms, using visual, sound, audio and digital materials across disciplines and contexts. It implies the ability to communicate and connect effectively with others in an appropriate and creative way. As you see, this competence can be declined in terms of knowledge, with reference to the knowledge of reading and writing and a sound understanding of written information. Skills, with reference to the ability to communicate by speaking and writing. Attitudes, with reference to having a disposition to critical and constructive dialogue, an appreciation of aesthetic qualities, and an interest in interaction with others. What do we mean by learning outcome? Learning outcomes specify what the students are expected to become able to do in order to demonstrate that they have acquired a particular competence. They should be observable, accessible in some way, and both rigorous and flexible, because the learning can be demonstrated in a variety of ways. So, be careful. Learning outcomes are not outcomes of learning, but desired targets. For example, the student should be able to detect correlations among the main events associated with the medieval era, can be considered as a learning outcome. Despite Europe is promoting a competence-oriented education, competences and learning outcomes are interconnected elements that are both useful for student assessment. Take in mind what you want students to develop and achieve through the scenario experience you propose. If you want to familiarize yourself with the OLA scenario creation process, you can look at some interviews to scenario creators from the Another European Erasmus Plus project, provided in the learning materials of this MOOC. The interviewed teachers show you how they created their scenarios through the 4 phases of the creation process, clarifying how they focused on key competencies and learning outcomes. Let's find out what they have to say. Thank you for your attention.